Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's jump right in, because today we are looking at something honestly pretty mind-blowing. What if I told you that one of the most recognizable companies on Earth doesn't make the bulk of its fortune from what you think it does? Millions of us walk through their doors every single day, assuming we're just buying a quick meal, but behind those familiar logos and perfectly salted fries lies a secret. We're talking about $1 billion secret that transformed a tiny, incredibly efficient kitchen into one of the wealthiest empires in human history.
So the crucial question we are asking today is, how does McDonald's really make billions? It's a question that completely challenges an assumption you and I make every single time we drive past those golden arches. You look at the menu, you see the burgers, the fries, the shakes, and you naturally think, hey, they sell food at a massive volume, so that's obviously how they make all that money. But once you see what is actually happening behind the scenes, I promise, you are never going to look at this everyday brand the same way again.
Look, what you think is happening is essentially just a straightforward transaction, right? Selling burgers and fries to hungry customers. But the reality? It's a hidden, perfectly structured corporate machine. The paradox here is that the everyday consumer experience is really just a front for a completely different financial engine. And to understand how they actually pull this off, well, we have to look back to the very foundation of the empire.
Let's start with a revolutionary beginning, the 1940s origin.
Picture this. It's 1940, and two brothers, Richard and Maurice McDonald, open a small restaurant in California. At first, it's just another burger joint. But then in 1948, they did something truly groundbreaking. They introduced the speedy service system. Instead of waiting a long time for a meal, customers were getting their food in literal seconds. It was a total revelation. The restaurant became wildly popular. But the true turning point, the real moment that set the stage for the modern behemoth, happened in 1954, when a guy named Ray Kroc walked through their doors.
Which brings us to the franchise problem and some major expansion issues. So Ray Kroc looks at that incredible speedy service system and instantly sees a vision of thousands of locations across America. He partners with the brothers and starts franchising. At first glance, everything looked fantastic. But here is the question I want you to really think about. If more restaurants meant more sales, why wasn't the company earning enough? It was a massive structural problem. The franchise owners on the ground were making money hand over fist, but the central corporation itself was actually struggling to stay afloat. The math just simply wasn't adding up for corporate headquarters.
Kroc was backed into a serious corner. The simple act of taking a tiny percentage of burger sales was not going to build an empire, let alone keep the lights on at a corporate level. He absolutely needed a completely new strategy. And this survival necessity forced him to pivot and, in the process, build one of the smartest, most bulletproof business models ever invented in corporate history.
Get ready for the plot twist, the real estate secret.
I know it sounds entirely crazy when you first hear it, but McDonald's is a real estate company. Seriously, you don't walk into a real estate office and order a side of fries, but this is their hidden engine. They are not primarily a burger company at all. Those golden arches are actually built on a foundation of massive property ownership.
Here's how this absolute genius of a mechanism works step by step. Step 1. When someone wants to open a new location, they usually don't buy the land themselves. Instead, the McDonald's Corporation steps in and buys the land and the building. Step 2. The corporation then turns around and rents that very location right back to the franchise owner. And step 3, this is the most beautiful part of the whole design. McDonald's collects that monthly rent regardless of burger sales. Whether the local store has a record-breaking month or a completely terrible one, the central corporation gets paid its rent.
So let's define what this actually means at scale. This is corporate wealth generation in its absolute purest form. Just think about the sheer volume here. We are talking about thousands upon thousands of restaurants making thousands of monthly lease payments year after year after year. The company has quietly amassed some of the most incredibly valuable commercial properties on the planet. While you and I are totally focused on the menu board, McDonald's is quietly acting as the world's most successful landlord, collecting an absolute fortune in real estate income.
Now let's look at the multipliers, the sheer power of scale. Imagine sitting at a negotiating table to buy potatoes. If you run a small independent restaurant, you might buy a few bags a week. You pay whatever the going rate is. But McDonald's buys enough potatoes to feed entire countries. Because of this absolutely massive global size, suppliers will literally bend over backwards to offer them drastically cheaper prices. And this immense purchasing power doesn't just apply to potatoes. It's the cups, the packaging, every single ingredient, and all the kitchen equipment.
Which leads us directly to this staggering result, millions of dollars in extra profit.
When you're operating at the scale of McDonald's, saving even just a few tiny cents on a paper cup or a single slice of cheese compounds exponentially. The bigger the company becomes, the more ruthlessly efficient its supply chain gets, dropping millions straight to the bottom line without needing to sell a single extra burger.
Moving on to the brand machine, building trust. Now, none of this brilliant corporate strategy works if people don't actually walk through the doors, right? The real estate only holds value because the business inside it thrives. And why does it thrive? Well, because of instantly recognizable golden arches, because of decades of meticulously built trust, ubiquitous advertising that is just woven into our culture, and an unforgettable consistency where a fry tastes the exact same whether you are in Tokyo or Texas. This psychological power guarantees millions of customers every single day, which in turn ensures the franchise owners can always pay their rent to the corporate landlord.
So, let's bring it all together, from burger joint to global empire. We've broken down a pretty incredible journey in this explainer. What started as just an innovative 1940s speedy service kitchen in California rests today on these 4 dominant pillars. Real estate dominance acting as a steady, unbreakable foundation of wealth, a franchising strategy that outsources the day-to-day risk, relentless branding that drives guaranteed daily traffic, and massive scale that squeezes unmatched profit margins out of every single transaction. Collectively, these 4 mechanics built a totally unstoppable global force.
And that brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. Sometimes the biggest companies don't make money in the way most people think. I really hope this completely shatters any preconceived notions you had about the everyday businesses you just walk past. The next time you see those golden arches, remember, you aren't just looking at a fast food counter. You are looking at a brilliant, multi-layered real estate and supply chain masterpiece. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. Keep questioning how the world around you really works, and I will see you on the next explainer.